Hi, my name is Lyric, and today we are continuing with the Greatest Peaks series by the legendary Thinking Basketball with episode 7, which is the Forgotten Megastar of the 1990s, and this episode is about David Robinson, reacting to his highlights yesterday, and we're going to react to his Greatest Peaks episode, learning more about him, and yeah, let's just not waste time, let's get into
Adonis David Robinson generated some of the best regular season numbers in league history. He and Michael Jordan are the only players ever to
one of the greatest
win
two-way
a scoring
players
title and Defensive Player of the Year.
It's actually insane. Scoring title on DPOY, only two players, Michael Jordan and David Robinson. Wow, that's actually really crazy. That is not talked about nearly enough.
Tiger, did he crumble in the playoffs? Or
ooh, this is an interesting question I want to see.
A complex, multifaceted superstar and one of the most valuable players of the three-point era.
Let's see.
Where's Larry Bird in all this? Has it blocked by Olajuwon? Michael Jordan saves the day.
This series tackles one question: who was the best at his best? We start at the ABA merger and go through the best multi-year stretches, examining the legends who provided the most on-court impact. This
is a legendary series, man.
Peaks.
Absolutely legendary series. Episode 7, David Robinson, 94 to 96.
Doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that he's very special. It's ghostly. It's not recognizable. You think of it as normal quickness.
Oh my God.
It transcends
the defense.
Goes to another level.
In the 80s, we saw some of the greatest offensive players to ever grace the hardwood. But Robinson was a callback to defensively dominant big men like Bill Russell. In college, David's quick leaping drew comparisons to Russell. It took a millisecond for him to reach 11 feet with a quick hop and his long, outstretched left hand. Listed at 7'1", Robinson was a good 2 or 3 inches taller than Russell, and his combination of size and jumping speed made him a devastating rim protector. NASA should have conducted lab testing on how quickly Robinson launched off the floor. All he required was a little knee bend to spring up off of 2 feet.
Oh my God, yeah.
And he was almost entirely a two-footed jumper, often using a quick hop to organize his feet and then swat. Here's another look. There's the little hop to load up, and he's still on the floor when Wayman Tisdale nears his apex, and in less than 0.2 of a second, Robinson arrives above
oh my
the rim.
God. No, when you break it down like that, that's actually insane.
It took Robinson about 6
or
or 7/10 of a second from the time he started his gather to meet the ball above the hoop. For comparison, this crazy Michael Jordan block took over 0.8 from his windup, and when Robinson went directly into his bunny hop to contest, he was comparable to Russell himself in time to reach 10 feet.
Wow.
Throw in Robinson's length, and he could just materialize out of nowhere like a shot-blocking wraith. On the offensive end, Robinson can feel unspectacular. His upper body stiffness lacks a certain sexiness for most people, but that's because he was a 7'1" bionic human whose best move was just being quicker and more explosive than normal.
I mean, look at him, man.
Despite his height, he preferred to turn and face
so large
from the mid-range and go to work out of a classic triple threat position. His first step was
we saw all those mid-ranges last video,
opponents, and he was strong enough to power around slight contact like this. Even though it's only one hard dribble, he was a boatload approaching the basket with a short runway. This face, jab, and go game was too fast for many fives of the 1990s, and it led to a parade to the free throw line. Robinson's free throw rates peaked right around Jordan's during their best playoffs.
Free throw rates, okay.
Stretches, despite David having the ball left.
Of course, number 1, Shaq. And Dwight Howard, LeBron goes to the paint so much than Jordan.
Than MJ and not receiving deliberate fouls.
Pretty much the top 3 in here are just not good free throw shooters. I mean, LeBron, he's not terrible. He's not Shaq and Dwight Howard level, but you know, not the greatest.
Like Shaq and Dwight Howard. As you can see from
Joel Embiid right there. I wonder if that's gone up or it's probably gone up. That's definitely probably gone up since that's from 2018 to 2020 and before his MVP year. That's definitely gone up.
That list. It's hard for big men to create signature
James
shots
Harden, obviously,
when
in there.
marching to the free throw line constantly.
Probably not higher.
But as a 75% free throw shooter,
Damn, 17 for 29.
This was incredibly effective offense. He even threw in his own mini
These are free
Euro
throws for a
step,
center.
where he'd swing back the other way if he felt his first step cut off. They didn't call this pivot foot travel as much back then, even though they were stricter in forcing 2 steps. In a sense, his physical gifts made Robinson the 90s version of Giannis Antetokounmpo, except instead of attacking from around the three-point line, Robinson
Mid-range.
set up shop near the elbows and relied on a quick first step. Unlike Giannis, the Admiral blended his rim attacks with an effective face-up jumper. He could fake a drive.
Is he better than
back
Giannis
step
then?
to create space, then fire.
Giannis with a mid-range?
Look. In the data we have access to at the end of the 90s, Robinson hit 43 to 44% of his mid-range twos, landing him somewhere between the 60th and 75th percentile among volume mid-range shooters this century. And he could even drain those off the dribble, although he appeared less comfortable moving into his shots like this. His outside shot then allowed him to sell up fakes and beeline to the rim. And that resulted in more layups or trips back to the free throw line. Back in those days, he was occasionally criticized for playing like this, seen merely as a jump shooter who lacked the traditional back-to-the-basket game to dominate like a classic.
They saying he Porzingis.
Big. But remember, back-to-the-basket offense isn't incredibly effective unto itself. Kareem was basically the only big man to spearhead great offenses for the first 35 or 40 years of the shot clock, and he did so next to elite guards. Besides, Robinson did have a solid low post game too. His physical advantages allowed him to power into certain opponents, and once again, that pressure led to quality looks at the rim or more free throws. He also had a nice little fadeaway to his left shoulder, and he could flow into this quickly, and his size and high release often generated a really clean look. By 1995, this shot was fairly polished, and he used it quite a bit against smaller defenders who gave him problems like Karl Malone. Malone's bodybuilding strength and quick feet prevented Robinson from
those two are just so goddamn muscular.
Blasting by him. And he can hold deep position against
That's truly a
David
battle of
and
titans right
disrupt
there.
his setups despite giving up 4 inches or so. Agility and strength were an antidote to Robinson's first step, and once a drive was walled up, he could target the ball with that patented slapdown move, and in today's jargon, he would be an admiral stopper. In general, bigs who were fairly strong and could move their feet well slowed Robinson down by taking away the quickness advantage he held over so many traditional centers of the 90s.
Pippen?
David could occasionally turn back to that right shoulder, but this was a tougher shot for him. He doesn't rotate that quickly, and so squaring his shoulders to the hoop takes an extra, sometimes awkward beat. Against weaker defensive teams of his era, Robinson was less likely to encounter matchups like this, but his scoring took a major haircut against stronger defensive teams who were more likely to have versatile big men. That 6% drop in efficiency is on the large side for modern superstars, and in the regular season,
that makes it a lot harder for you to be really good in the playoffs because everyone at least is a good defensive team by regular season standards in the playoffs because there's so much more intensity.
Robinson was able to juice his scoring numbers a bit more than a typical star player by picking on weaker teams, which meant that his peak regular season numbers overstated how effective his scoring arsenal was in a playoff setting. Now,
in playoffs,
this is still good scoring. It's just not great scoring. The Admiral even threw in a little spin move occasionally, but this was also stiffer than versions from other superstars at the time, like Hakeem Olajuwon. Even Robinson's really impressive shots, like this turn over Olajuwon, didn't leave the same mark as Hakeem's crazy, high-difficult fadeaways. And this aesthetic gap helped create the impression that Olajuwon dominated Robinson and was light years ahead of him as a player. But that narrative misses a critical part of the story and overlooks Robinson's actual value on a high-level team.
That was interesting.
You're just a little bit too tight, man. You need to loosen up. Over the top, man. Be an individual.
So what do you want me to do?
Well, you can start by eating your pizza the wrong way. Crust first.
After a number of near wins, Robinson finally grabbed an MVP trophy in 1995 and led the Spurs to the Western Finals, where he ran into a buzzsaw. Robinson was tasked with guarding Hakeem, often without any help, and while he defended him fairly well on most possessions, a heads-up battle with Hakeem was a bad matchup for the Admiral. Olajuwon had some monster games in their regular season meetings, and Hakeem's quickness could take away Robinson's first step. Well,
we're gonna get to Hakeem, I think, next episode.
On the other end, Robinson couldn't really take away his dream-shaking and wild shot-making.
Yeah,
Robinson was a really good man defender. He used his length to contest shots well, and he was able to hold his own against the powerful brutes of that era, grappling with a young Shaquille O'Neal here before his quickness wins out for the steal. Even though he wasn't great moving laterally, he was long and springy enough to recover, but he was susceptible to up fakes, and at times he could be a little too quick off his feet, which showed in a number of different defensive scenarios, especially near the hoop. Jumping like this fed into Hakeem's hands as a ball-faking Houdini.
Oh yeah, that's really bad for Hakeem. That's his whole move, bro, the dream shake.
Throwing his dream shakes into Robinson and setting him up for memorable scoring highlights. Combine Olajuwon's tough shot-making and his own natural quickness, and it makes for a lopsided game of one-on-one. But that's the thing about Robinson. He's a good one-on-one player, but he's a 5-on-5 star. His off-ball game was just as, if not more important than his isolation scoring. His face-up jumper made him a viable catch-and-shoot finisher in the mid-range, but more importantly, it made him a pick-and-pop weapon. This wasn't the spread pick-and-roll that is so popular today, but the Spurs ran plenty of ball screens inside the three-point arc where Robinson could pop to open space and knock down positive value shots. By 1994, this shot was pretty dialed in for David, and he could even turn it into an up fake and go in these situations. His athletic gifts also made him a natural finisher around the basket. This play against the Rockets shows just how easy he could make it look, catching the ball 10 feet away and casually gliding by a fleet of defenders without a dribble. His athleticism made him a weapon in transition as well, where he used his straight line speed to outrun slower, burlier centers of his time. It's less common today, but this penalized bigger lineups who crashed the glass, and it was normal for Robinson to outsprint opponents multiple times in a game like he did to Shaquille O'Neal in this 1996 matchup. David was one of the better lob threats of that era, a giant explosive target, and that's two-time Defensive Player of the Year Alonzo Mourning. He just ragdolls.
That's crazy.
I do think he was a touch more fluid flowing into these in his first few seasons, but lobs were certainly part of his offensive package in those peak years. San Antonio started to unlock this talent in 1996 when they ran more side pick and rolls with Avery Johnson, who grew comfortable with these reads, and I think between his mid-range shooting and his finishing skills, Robinson would have made a wonderful partner for a high-level pick-and-roll guard. Instead, he was asked to carry the entire offense in the mid-90s, which wasn't quite an ideal role. The Admiral was best suited to anchor a team's defense and play a hybrid role on offense, acting as a co-pilot or second-best offensive player. He
was the number one in both options.
After his peak,
with Tim Duncan
arrived in 1998.
Damn.
Duncan shouldered a larger isolation load, while the flexible Robinson played largely the same style out of the high post. Robinson's off-ball skills allowed him to fit in well with another talent, where he could still co-anchor some of the offense, here drawing a double for a huge three in the title-clinching game in 1999. And he could mix in his own isolation scoring in more select doses. The result was a decrease in volume for Robinson with an increase in scoring efficiency, a slightly above average offense for the Spurs as a team, and, more importantly, a dominant defense behind those twin towers.
Duncan and Robinson.
Engineered arguably
that's an all-time great defensive duo right there.
League history, holding their playoff opponents about 7 points per 100 below their regular season efficiency, a feat matched by only a few teams, and those teams had weaker regular season defenses. While Duncan was a great defender out of the gate, it was Robinson's impact that led the Spurs on defense. And while many view Duncan as the clear alpha dog on those teams after 1998, Robinson wasn't far behind because of his two-way impact and ability to blend with Duncan on offense. Robinson was a good entry passer in the mid-90s, and his best passes were from the perimeter, where he could face up and survey the floor.
Oh, Jokic.
In this position, his height allowed him to see the action unfold, and he could fire to cutters with decent speed, or he could feather in deliveries with a bit more touch.
Oh, the nice one.
He was always a willing extra passer. In this 1993 play, he can see the court and quickly flips it to a high leverage spot.
Oh, nice
and
quick
by 1995, I thought he was better at processing cutting action in front of him. This is a really nice read here, quickly spotting that his cutter's defender goes behind another Laker in a kind of half-hearted tag. And while there's no quick shot, it's the kind of pass that demonstrates some understanding of what defenses are doing, and it shows some anticipation. Although he wasn't elite in these spots, he misses the potential Draymond Green special here. And in my film study, I'm not sure he ball faked in a situation like this one time to manipulate the defense. Here's another one from the same game where he doesn't have time to really process the backside action and misses a potential layup. When he couldn't survey the floor, the results were choppier. He can't quickly process that the corner is open here.
Oh yeah, that was.
With his head down, he desperately flails this to an outlet. With his back to the basket, as long as he could see
these are
coming
some
from the top,
misses
his
here.
kick-out passes were pretty solid.
Some bad
and
misses.
This created plenty of open
Okay, that was
shots for
good.
the Spurs when they spaced the floor around him. Here he turns to spot the help, and in trying to locate his teammate, the delivery gets away from him a bit. Here's another one where he can't see the double coming, and his instinct is to turn and pass, but again, it's not the smoothest delivery, and it's deflected in front of his body. His lack of a handle and that lateral stiffness hurt him in these spots where well-timed double teams could prevent him from quickly moving it. And in this case, he's clamped up and misses another possible
clamped.
Still, I think that high post extra passing prowess, along with his massive defensive impact,
he has some nice
was
passes,
the
to be
key
fair.
Unlocking Robinson's
He just misses some of
value
them.
as a defensive superstar and offensive number 2. From 1998 to 2000, Robinson logged 37 minutes per game in the playoffs, while Duncan played 41 minutes a game. When Robinson sat on the bench during those years, the Spurs were outscored by 16 points every 48 minutes. But when Robinson played, they were a whopping plus 11.
Whoa, that's
And
a
since
big
we've been
impact,
tracking
man.
this
Holy
data
shit.
Since 1997, that is the largest change among any rotation player on record in the postseason. In the 98-99
and that's past his prime.
playoffs,
Holy
the
shit.
Spurs were actually better in the limited minutes Duncan was on the bench. We're only talking about a few hundred minutes here, so there's plenty of noise. But this is a huge reminder of how impactful a hybrid player like Robinson can be without being the team's clear-cut number one scorer. This makes
That's really
sense
interesting.
when we remember these were dominant defensive teams that were slightly above average on offense. It also brings us full circle back to Bill Russell, who, as we examined in the series prelude, dominated the 60s
without being the
being
number one
his
offense.
team's best offensive player.
Right.
I wonder what Robinson's career would have looked like with another offensive star next to him, and furthermore, how would we view him if he was the one who joined a 32-year-old Duncan in 1998 and propelled the Spurs over the top, launching the Popovich era? Robinson was
really
clearly a
interesting.
better offensive player than Russell, although despite that incredible speed off the floor and his considerable defensive impact, he wasn't entirely on Russ's level at that end. His reactions to threats were quite quick, especially if he could see the threat in front of him, but Robinson could be a bit too stationary in subpar positions. He wasn't really down in his stance, pivoting around a lot like Bill Walton, but I think he didn't bounce around a lot because of his limitations moving laterally. His lateral movement wasn't really poor, but it was more laborious and stiffer.
Laborious, that's a
compared to
word.
his straight-ahead quickness, and so he couldn't easily slide horizontally in the paint, which limited him compared to some of his normal straight-line movement in help situations.
Definitely struggling there.
Just like we saw in his passing game, he wasn't great at mapping the court that he couldn't see, and sometimes that allowed breakdowns behind his field of vision. Pick and roll also wasn't a huge part of the game then, but Robinson's horizontal movement meant this wasn't really a defensive strength for him, and in general, he tried to avoid stretching to the perimeter. Still, a strong offensive game and nearly GOAT defense yields some massive overall impact.
That's massive impact still. Nearly GOAT defense.
Going back to 1994. And on a per-game basis, Robinson looks like one of the best regular season players we've ever seen.
Wow.
Using our historical box score estimates, his playoff value during these peak seasons looks good, but not quite what we'd expect for a top 10 candidate. However, the Admiral moves up a rank when we use his numbers from 1998, and we know when we add in plus-minus data for those years, he looked like a Titan.
Right.
This reinforces what the box score can't capture. Robinson's combination of quality isolation scoring and off-ball offense, along with that massive defensive impact, make him one of the most valuable players of his era. His two-way skill set.
Ideal for 1B offensive role, strong off ball and roll, pop spot up in offensive rebounding. Great first step versus slower bigs. Solid back to the basket game. Good passer when serving floor, weaker back to the basket and receiving double defense. All-time quickness off floor, elite rim protection, great straight line help reactions in paint. Excellent man defender, mediocre moving laterally and on perimeter. Good, not great awareness of threats.
Scales well on a variety of championship rosters, and as a result, there aren't 5 centers since the ABA merger who I think have peaked higher than David Robinson.
Since the ABA merger, so no Wilt, no Russell. Yeah, I'd agree with that. 100%. I mean, what did you say? Hakeem, Moses Malone, Kareem, I guess, post-ABA merger, yeah. And then probably David Robinson. I think that's pretty understandable. I mean, maybe you put Jokic in there nowadays. But yeah, I said that was a really good introspective analysis. I feel like I learned a lot from that, and I feel like it's a good analysis of his game. So yeah, we're gonna continue on with the series. We're gonna do Hakeem Olajuwon next. If you enjoyed this, make sure to we'll watch the original video if you didn't already do that. Should have said that way back at the beginning. And yeah, if you want me to do more of these specific Greatest Peaks videos, make sure to comment that you like them. So yeah, bye.